Consideration and possible action to approve final plat for Rosary County Mud Number 56 Water Plant Replat Number 1 and extension, being a subdivision of 4.828 acres out of the Oliver Hall Survey Abstract 203, and also being a replat of Brazoria County Municipal Utility District Number 56 Water Plant as recorded in Brazoria County Plat Records, document number 202004794, City of Manville, Brazoria County, Texas. Motion to forward with favorable recommendation by PD&Z failed, 0-5.
Actually, Dan is going to address this one for.
Good evening. Yes, staff recommended denial of this, and PD&Z upheld that. There are 6 items. They're in your packet if you have them, but they're pretty straightforward plat comments. They need to be addressed before we can recommend approval. I can read those for you if you like, or you can just, nope, you're good. It's pretty straightforward.
Be okay. Okay. All right.
I'll move to approve.
All right.
I'll second that motion.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Motion fails, 7-0-7. All right, consideration and possible action to direct staff to provide applicants written statements of the conditions for any conditional approvals and the reasons for disapproval of any plans or plats that were not approved per Texas Local Government Code 212.0091.
Mayor and council members, this is the item that Jessica has mentioned several times before. This is authorization from the council to the staff to provide those written comments back to the applicant. We would recommend that you approve that.
Motion to approve, Mayor.
All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? And the motion carries 7-0. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Consideration and possible action to approve the first of 2 readings of Ordinance 2022-0-08, an ordinance amending Chapter 44, Offenses and Miscellaneous Provisions of the Code of Ordinances of the City of Manville, Texas, by amending Article 9, Noise Regulation, providing for exemptions and defenses, repealing provisions in conflict therewith, providing a penalty in an amount not to exceed $2,000 per day for each day of violation of any provision hereof, and providing for severability.
The chief's going to start on this one, ma'am.
All right, Chief?
Good evening. As we discussed in the last meeting, we took the ordinance back. We did some cleaning up on some of the language. We believe now it is ready for presentation, approval, or discussion at y'all's choice.
All right. Any questions? All right, Dan?
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Chief. I have a few comments, but just some clarification questions first. How long has Cameron been in business in the city of Manville? Cameron Recycling?
I don't know that specifically, but we have somebody here that might be able to, or Larry might be able to tell you that as well.
Quite some time, okay. Just to clarify, this ordinance is specifically to address noise. It's not to address any environmental concerns, air quality, any of that. It's just strictly noise.
Correct.
Thank you. Do we, and this is kind of putting you guys on the spot, I apologize about this question. In the last 6 months, how many noise complaints have we had called in throughout the city? Has it been a substantial amount, or?
Throughout the city?
Yes, sir.
Oh, I can't give you that number.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you that.
Okay, wasn't
But
sure, and I know that's
doing
putting
a
you on
little
the
bit of
spot.
research.
Yeah, I apologize. I just thought of that during the meeting, wanted to ask that. So, Mayor, there were kind of 3 areas in this ordinance that caught my eye that I'd like to see if there might be any interest in addressing these areas within the ordinance. I'm comfortable with us approving it as is tonight because I know that we'll have a second reading, but I'd love to get staff's comments on these and also council's, and I did provide these in advance last week to the city manager and police chief. Chief, one item of clarification, and whenever it says that we're looking at section 44-162, and this is specifically subsection D, and it talks about, the exceeding 5 decibels over 10, 15. It uses the word the source operates at a sustained level for less than 15 minutes in any 1 hour period. So would that mean, and just because, Cameron Recycling has been the topic of conversation, this isn't picking on anyone, if Cameron Recycling, let's say, operates for 6 minutes at a sustained level, because it uses that word less, could they then be considered in violation of this chapter because it's saying less than 15 minutes, not more than 15 minutes?
It could be depending on what the decibel levels are. There's three exceptions in here, or three areas to meet. One is the 15 minutes in any 1 hour period with exceeding 5 dBAs, 10 dBAs for 6 minutes in any 1 hour period, or 15 dBAs over the allowed limit for 1.5 minutes in any 1 hour period.
Okay, so that would leave it to the discretion of the officers that are involved with the investigation to say maybe at the sustained level, based off of it being 5 decibels over, considering some of the other circumstances and conditions met at the beginning of the ordinance, that maybe that 15 minutes for 5 decibels over isn't applicable, but maybe we need to look at it being 3 minutes or 5 minutes or 6 minutes or 7 minutes. It leaves that discretion in there based off of that word less than 15 minutes. And the reason I'm asking this is at the last meeting, the statement was made that it needs to be a sustained level, so constant, no breaking whatsoever. And so when I reread it, that word less stood out to me instead of us using the word more. And so I want to just make sure that the intent in here is true, so that way there's no loopholes. So it's saying less than 15 minutes could mean that if somebody's exceeding the 5 decibels over for 30 seconds, they could be issued a citation because they're violating the chapter.
I think the intent is the less amount you are over the threshold, the greater amount of time you can be sustained. And that's why it's up to 15 minutes for the lower level. If you're just 5 decibels over the limit, you can be, I guess, up to 15 minutes within an hour. And if you're more than that, like if you're 15 decibels over, then you bet less for 1.5 minutes over an hour.
Within that, yeah.
That's, I guess, the way it's designed is if you're just over the amount, you can have a little bit more of a threshold. If you're way over, then you have a very small window that you can be over, and that's what the intent is.
But it doesn't, whoever it is, whatever company it is, it doesn't have to be a full sustained 15 minutes to violate it.
Be continuous. Sustained just means within that certain time period, so it can be off and on, off and on.
Okay. But it doesn't, what I'm getting at is it doesn't need to make up a totality of 15 minutes because it's saying less than 15. So it could be where a company is 5 decibels over for 6 minutes, on and off within a hour period, and they could be issued a citation based off of the discretion of the officers.
Well, I mean, everything's at the discretion of the officer, right? Whether you're 1 decibel over or 15 decibels over, I mean, there's still, officer would have to make that call. But it's designed kind of like a step function, from this amount of bracket, this is what you're allowed to do, this bracket is what you're allowed to do. And that the bracketing is set out 1, 2, 3.
Of course. No, I'm tracking with you there. I just wanted to make sure, and you guys clarified it for me. It doesn't have to be a continuous 15 minutes, but it could be a continuous 2 minutes, 5 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes. If they exceed 5 decibels over, the officers could enforce this ordinance. And by getting clarification there, that eliminates the first of the 2 items that I sent you guys in the email, because I was going to recommend that it would be a sustained average over the hour period, but this does address that, because the sustained average is an industry standard based off of noise studies that are done, but based off of what you guys clarified tonight, that is incorporated in here. So, Mayor, I guess the only other item then, in Chief, this would be, I lean on your recommendation here. You had mentioned at the last meeting about potentially having built into this ordinance the situation where, for example, a heavy industrial company, their 5 decibels of exceeding whatever their max is because they're heavy industrial might be a lot louder than a light commercial exceeding 5 decibels over. Do we want to adjust, for example, 5 decibels over is 15 minutes, 10 decibels over is 6 minutes, 15 decibels over is 1.5 minutes? Do we want to have break that out according to zoning? So maybe, like a heavy commercial, instead of having heavy commercial be 15 minutes, maybe it's 9 minutes of 5 decibels over. Are you tracking with me?
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, but if you have heavy commercial, and you got light commercial, they're both making noise. Noise is noise. You could have one of our restaurants out here, they could have a live band playing. It's in the light commercial. That could be just as annoying as a heavy commercial with a lot of banging and heavy equipment. Noise is noise. So that would have to be a definition of there of what we're calling noise, my opinion. I'll give you an example. Where I live, I have to listen to the 2 o'clock in the morning. I got to listen to concerts every time the fair season rolls around. I get to listen to them 2 or 3 hours because I live that close to the fairgrounds.
Hopefully they're good concerts.
Some are, some aren't. But that's noise. That's not heavy commercial, but that's still noise. I get to listen to my neighbors ride their motorbikes all around the yard because they have a three-acre yard. So I get to listen to that every weekend. So, that's residential. It's not heavy commercial, but it's still noise. So if we try to break it out and try to separate on what's what, you could have a rock band playing down at Henri's one night that exceeding the decibel levels of everything else, but yet we're separating it out. To me, noise is noise. So, we define what's good noise, what's bad noise. I don't know.
Okay, the reason I ask is there was a comment that was made by somebody at the last meeting that potentially what I referenced was in here, and because I didn't see it in here, I just wanted to get your opinion as to whether or not it would be good to break out that time limit based off of zoning category. And so what I'm getting from what you're saying is that's not something that you deem as necessary, that it's solid as is here for that.
Unless y'all think otherwise, I believe we have a solid ordinance.
Okay, I appreciate that. So no, that kind of answers my question. I think I'm good, Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
So what do we say about those that have concerns that this isn't going to do what we need it to do? Mr. Johnson says he doesn't feel like this ordinance is going to give him the relief that he's looking for. I mean, maybe it is, maybe it isn't, maybe it should, maybe it shouldn't, but what is our answer to him to that?
Well, it provides a more measurable standard, more defined exceptions, so it takes out a lot of any gray area. So I think the ordinance is better. I mean, our way to achieve it is to give the citizens a standard that they can all go by, that can be measured, and give some clarity. There is something. If you look at section B, Dan, about your question about different districts, we provided a simple, I guess, exception for those districts that are named in section B, where you're allowed a 5 decibels more than you would on the general prohibition. So instead of 65, you can go up to 70 for a heavy commercial, light commercial, highway mixed use, and PUD, as long as they're non-residential. We don't have that in the current ordinance. We have some specifics there, and we've got a lot of gray area taken out. I mean, I guess for your question, Jason, I don't know if you have a specific goal of having, a noise-free neighborhood, then I don't know that we can guarantee that to anybody in town. But we do have something where it's measurable, within a certain time frame, within a certain decibel. The police officers have a tool to go do something about it. And it's not uncommon for, if there is a problem, for neighbors to file through municipal court on other neighbors, even without the city police officer having to go out there and be there.
No, I think it's unrealistic to think that we're going to have 100% noise-free communities. It's just, I don't think that's going to happen. So I'm satisfied with your answer. But I also wonder, do we need to, because Chief Traylor makes some good points, do we need to, for the second reading, do we need to consider some sort of permitting that says, we're going to have an event, and so we give a little bit of leeway to do that? I thought I saw some language, but I don't know that it was that specific.
There is a loudspeaker permit requirement. That is one of the exceptions if you do get a permit from the city and there's a permitting process.
Right, for loudspeaker, but not if Honore's, for you, we're just keep using the chief's example. If they decide to have a concert, is there some way that we need to be able to enshrine that so that the cops aren't knocking on the school district's door for the band playing too loud? Because I'm telling you, they're really loud. Because I live behind them, but I wouldn't in a million years think to call and complain about the band. But as this is written, would they be in violation after 9 o'clock?
I would think, well, I would have thought that Honore's could have gotten an application and got a permit for a loudspeaker permit, which, you know, basically requires you to be done by 9, I think, if I'm reading that right. But I don't know why they would, you know, only natural persons could apply for a permit. I would think businesses could apply for a loudspeaker permit, you know, any type of entity could.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? Discussion? Do I have a motion to approve this first reading?
I make a motion to approve.
All those in favor? All those opposed? And the motion carries 7-0. Thank you. All right, consideration and possible action to direct staff on foundation membership options for the Friends of the Manville Public Library. And so, Mr. Brian Wilmer is going to come up and give us the lowdown.
Good evening, everybody. Your Honor, members of council, greatly expanding members of staff. And for the new staff member, I want to be clear, I'm a former member of council, but I am not Adrian Gaspar. So, clear that up right now. So I still may be the one that they warned you about, though, right after they warned you about Dan. So, good evening, everyone. We're here today because the library has been making great progress on our history collection project. I'm happy to be standing here with Angela Vickerman with me and a member of our board. Jackie Silva is here also, so representing the library. We've made some great strides. We've recorded a bunch of really great videos of our founders telling their stories. One that I want to share right off the bat, there was a lady that we contacted to interview, and we said, can you come on Saturday? And she's, at the last minute, she said, I really want to come and be interviewed, but I can't find anyone to watch my little brother. Is it okay if I bring him with me? And we said, of course, please bring your little brother. Well, it turns out her little brother is 90 years old, and she was 93. This is the Olga and Carly Daumelin from the Daumelin family. And they had some wonderful stories to tell. And this is, we've recorded so many great stories. Our first grant was for $10,000, and that was for equipment. And now we have a much greater task ahead of us. We have to make all of that, we have to find a permanent home for all of that data, and we have to have a way for everyone in the city to access it. So the task is more than what the library can do. So we're looking for ways to find a way to get us over the hill, to get us published and to get the websites published and have the ability to sell memberships so that we'll be self-supporting. But the cost is more than what we can bear. We met with Kyle and the mayor and talked about some different ways of funding that. And Kyle came up with a great idea of selling a membership to the city for the amount of money that we need. The amount of money that we need is $40,000. And that membership would be a forever membership. It would never have to be renewed. And with that, you would be known as a foundation member. You would have access to all of the videos and documents that we collect. So for future State of the City speeches, you would already have all that accessible. Your website would be prominently displayed on every form of advertising that we do, from the credits after videos to advertising for live events like bake sales and whatnot. The city would be recognized as our main sponsor. And another benefit that the mayor and I were talking about that I forgot to mention is that the city also gets a history collection website, a way to preserve and store and display our local history. So I'm happy to answer any questions. If you have more specific questions, I can talk all night about websites and stories. We have created a sort of a mock-up website for the library. If you go to Manville Friends, you can kind of see what it looks like. None of the links work, but it is accessible from Google. So if you want to kind of check out where we're headed with that. Before I go any further, does anybody have any questions?
Lorraine?
I do. I have a couple of questions or comments. So, what other fundraising efforts are you guys making? I know that you guys, I saw somewhere that there was a Rosary County dinner, and I don't know if it's happened yet.
That is
Brian.
that is the county, and they have an author dinner that they do once a year. And so we participate in that by sending a basket of goods that they raffle off. But that is for the county library as a whole. So we, in the past, have had a great variety of fundraising events. We've had bake sales and craft sales. We had a golf tournament one time. We've done a variety of things. We haven't been able to have those in-person events due to COVID, but we're really looking forward to being able to do those again in the future, and the website will really help us to promote those. Our digital platforms will be on all media. It won't just be a website. We'll be on Facebook and other social media platforms. So we hope to be able to reach a great audience and be able to bring more people to our fundraising events. So we plan to be very aggressive. One of the things we're doing is we've created Manville History as a separate 401c3, and they exist only to support the library. And the only way that you can access the history is by being a member of the Friends. You have to buy a Friends membership. And so all of that money goes into kids programs and adult education and stuff like that. So it's really interesting. As far as I know, it's the only nonprofit that's been created strictly to support another nonprofit. So it's a way of killing two birds with one stone. We get to collect our local history, and we also get to support the library. So the history is an added benefit that you can get by being a friend. So in a way, our entire history thing is a fundraiser for the library. Does that make sense?
Well, sort of. I guess, just so I can connect the dots and be okay with it. I mean, and I'm happy to hear and feel very comfortable that you've spoken with Kyle and the mayor about it, the city manager and the mayor, because they would have already looped through any legalities that will make it okay to do that, to buy memberships of things like that. Because I know for like the chamber, we get to buy memberships for that, but for other is it 501c or is it a different type of nonprofit?
401c3.
401c that we're allowed to actually do things like that. And that's okay, because I'm glad you guys have already talked that out, if that's okay. I want to hope or give support, whether through a board, which you guys have a board, right? Okay. And you guys aggressively have higher seeking donors such as the city. I mean, because that is a high donation to start with, in my opinion, just saying. Because it's turned over. I'm curious as to what oversight that we have, and if there's going to be anybody either on our city staff or anything that's going to kind of help, just, again, board member type things.
Sure. The library,
that sort of thing.
yeah, we do have a board. The library meets quarterly. We have the mayor is on our board. Miss Tammy Bell has agreed to be involved in recruiting for us. so she's more involved with the organization. Councilman Davis is on our board. So we do have some city representation already. We really want to be a good partner. We want to collect the city's history and to be an asset for the city. Our history is a really rich and wonderful thing. So the whole thing exists to support the library and to support the city.
And so, from here, where does it go? Is it, like you said, it's a forever sponsorship, so we will budget it every year? If,
No.
no?
It's a one-time. We should look at this.
Did I not get that right? That somebody said we're gonna be a forever member, like?
Yeah, once it's one and done. You do this and then it never has to be renewed.
Okay,
That's
I was under the impression that we were gonna give every year, so we
That would be
budgeted for it.
great, you know?
Was
Well,
not what
and-
was
and
discussed.
I bring that up
You know what?
because
Let's go ahead and,
things get expensive, and I like planning for the future.
Yeah.
We already give to our recycling center, which we get a lot out of.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I guess I want to know futuristic, if it's a one-time donation, but things get expensive, technology grows, we will always have more history.
Sure.
I just want to know I'm asking how this is set up so that we are prepared to either get another ask or to formulate it in which we can consistently be on the
Right.
board to have our taxpayer have something good, like tangible to hold.
this is a high ask because quite frankly, we don't ever want to come back and ask for more. You can kind of look at this as a Kickstarter grant. This gets us over the hill. We will, it buys some much needed equipment. It provides for all of the software that we need to edit videos and to run the websites. And it gives us the ability to attract memberships, to go out and sell memberships. We'll have a digital platform. We'll be able to advertise ourselves. You'll be able to sign up on your phone. You can access everything on your phone or on your laptop. So this gets us over the hill to the point where we will be self-sufficient. It is too expensive for us to do. Currently, I am personally paying for all of the software that we use to make this go. The first grant was only for equipment. So, and I'm happy to do it, but things like membership management software, AWS data storage, things like that, they are more than what we or the library can afford to do. So we need this grant to get up and running to where we can attract members and be self-sufficient.
And have you collaborated with other libraries in the system?
No, each library has their own friends group, but this is a pretty unique situation. We did not have a history collection. We didn't have a historical society. Most cities do. Alvin does. Friendswood has a big one. Pearland has one. So they didn't need to create a history thing. We're really trying to do two things, like I said, kill two birds with one stone. Collect our history and support the library at the same time. So it's a kind of a unique situation.
Anybody else?
Thank you, Mayor. And those are good questions from Councilmember Lorraine. Brian, we've talked about this. I believe that an investment in our past is an investment in our future. And knowing who's involved with this project, they're not looking to get something out of it for themselves, but they're looking to give. What I would just ask, speaking to Councilmember Lorraine's point, is if we could get, maybe quarterly updates specifically on the progress of how this money is being used, what the actual costs are coming out on, whether it be included in the updates that Carolyn provides, kind of as a footer to that. Just keeping us apprised as to the progress might also help from an oversight perspective. But I'm supportive of this, Mayor, and I would be comfortable with directing staff, and I'm assuming this is going to come from unused fund balance to be a budget amendment to move in.
We'll take a look at that to find out. Obviously, we wanted to know if the council wanted to do it in the first place and then direct us to come back with, you could probably make a motion to become a founding member and then direct the staff to find the money. If it takes a budget amendment, we'd bring it back. If it's a line item that we could use out of professional services or something else that we could take a look at, and you would authorize that as well. So it kind of depends on what the council wants to do.
To answer your question, I'm very happy to come back quarterly and give reports. Hopefully, if this all goes up and running, you'll be able to just pull out your phone and see how we're doing, you know, with our websites that way. But I'm very happy to stand here and tell stories all night long.
Well, and I think if you did, even one story would sell the entire the entire program, because it is unbelievable.
We've had
And
so many great stories.
the fact is that the certainly the founding fathers are not here anymore, but so many members of the founding families are, and you and Angela have been able to, you know, actually get them in and talk to them. And I don't want to make that sound like they're going away, but they're going away. You know, they're going to, you know, meet their maker, as we all will. So you being able to bring this all to us. One thing I was going to suggest, and it's just an aside that I thought of while we were while I was listening to Lorraine. You know, if we, as the city on our site, you know, when we're updating around, if we could do little clips maybe, you know, now
Sure.
and again, and I think it would spark interest as well.
Right.
And we're, right now, I don't know how many people are looking at our site on a daily basis, but if it's somewhere else as well, now I know that you want to limit, you know, the longer stories and all the stories to the members. But if we could have them, you know, just little snips that kind of are, you know, enticing people to go to the
That is
library site.
certainly a win-win situation for us as well. And when we say that your logo will be prominently displayed and that you'll have access to all of our data, that's the access to all of our data that we're talking about. If you want to use snippets on your website, you won't have to approach us. You'll just have access to it. If you want to use historical documents or anything that's not protected by our, when people come in and interview, we get them to sign a video release form that says that we have the right to reproduce their digital image. So too much of that will not be accessible, but that's a very small portion of what we hope to collect. And you will have access to all of that. And if you want to use snippets of that, of course, like we did in the State of the City speech.
Right. I mean, we don't want to steal your thunder.
Right, but no,
we
you will
do.
have.
It would be
that's-
a nice advertisement as well.
Absolutely, and that is that when we say you'll have access to all of our digital, all of our data, that will be it. You will have access to that.
Okay. Anybody else? Jason?
I haven't seen how much.
40,000.
40K. The first one was for 10. This one is for 40.
Okay, so
There is a spreadsheet.
There's backup.
yeah,
Spreadsheet.
I don't. It's not in the agenda packet, which is why I was asking. But that. The top level number's fine. I don't need to get into the weeds. My concern is, I'm all about being a member and doing that, but as I hear other folks talking along the dais about, you know, you coming back and doing regular updates and having oversight, it's starting to feel less of a membership and more of a city board, and I don't think we want to go down that road of a city board. So I think we need to really set the right expectation. Is if we're going to become members, then we're going to become members, and we have to trust that the city manager and the city attorney are comfortable with the agreement with which our membership and the things that they will give us that we don't get to run their operation.
I agree.
Okay.
Yeah. And I want to make it clear that Bobby was in that meeting. We did have our legal oversight and it was kind of an evolutionary process, I would call it. You know, we started out with, it sounded like a lot of money. So, you know, we started with that, and then as we got around to the fact that it would, Kyle's idea of us being, you know, a sponsoring member, what are we calling us? Founding member.
yeah.
Okay, sorry, yeah, it just made me old quick.
Welcome to the
But yes, I agree, Councilman Albert, that was the premise that we actually tried to establish, you know, in the
And
beginning.
I think that, and I really appreciate your comment. We do almost exactly the same thing. I mean, you take care of the laws of the city. We preserve the city's history. A lot of the history that we preserve are the city's laws and who's been on city council, and you know, so we are very similar entities. So there's going to be a lot of like overlap. We have several people that are in city council that are on our board. So it does look like we're intermingling a lot, but we definitely have our different roles.
Now, we made this point before, and I want to, I want you to keep it in mind in going forward. You had made the point that you're not going to live forever,
Right.
and that, and in the event that someone has to step into your shoes, we need to make sure that they're not putting out the kind of funds that you have had to put out.
Yeah.
So if you could have a little savings account for that in the future, that would be helpful, because I don't think you get anybody to step in your shoes otherwise.
That was, like I said, I'm paying out of pocket for all of the Premiere Pro and all of the Dropbox and stuff like that. And I love doing it, but you can't really say, congratulations, you're the new president of the Friends of the Library. Oh, and by the way, it's going to cost you $250 a month. No one's going to do that, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so
Just-
that is part of the force behind this.
Well, they're lucky to have you, but you're right. No one else is going to do that.
No one else would do that. Because everyone else is smart.
Well, I don't know. I think that it's an impassioned role, and we're happy that you and Angela are impassioned as you are. So we're lucky.
I tell
to
you,
have
we've been having the time of our lives
I bet.
doing this. It has been so rewarding. Can I tell one story?
Please do.
There's, we interviewed Janice Del Bello. Janice Del Bello was the first lady EMS technician here in Manville, Texas. And when she was training in the medical center, she worked part-time as a mail delivery person for the post office. And she was out making her route, and the post office loved her because she knew where all of the weird houses were in what she called Del Bello land. And so she found the fire truck trying to find a house, and they said, you're the postman. Where is this house? And she said, it's just on the other side of those trees. Why do you want to know? She said, there's a lady there who is giving birth, and we're trying to find her. So she took them there, and because she was in medical training, they took care of the mom, and she resuscitated the baby. And she said, fortunately, there was a bottle of water in the mail delivery truck so that she could wash off her hands and continue delivering the mail. And it was like, what a special delivery. I mean, that is, do you put a stamp on that package? And there's so many of these stories. One thing we always say founding fathers, but quite often it's founding mothers who founded our city. It's one of the, excuse me, it's one of the most amazing things about our story is that both men and women created this city. But there's so many interesting and fascinating stories. I can't wait to make it all public. Like I said, Angela and I have been having the time of our lives interviewing these people. We've done about a dozen interviews, and as soon as we cross this next line, we've got about 25 or 30 people that we need to record their stories right away.
All right. Anybody else? Do I have a motion?
Mayor, I'll make a motion to direct staff to join the Friends of the Manville Public Library as a founding member and to determine the proper area from our budget to find the necessary funds.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor? All those opposed? And the motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Wilmer.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Angela. And we will move on. Okay. All right, consideration and possible action to participate in the state of Texas's subsequent settlements with litigants in opioid litigation and authorize the city manager to execute the Endo subdivision release form and the Tiva subdivision release form and any other paperwork needed to finalize the settlements. Bobby?
Council, if you remember, back in December, we finalized our participation in the settlement agreement with the opioid litigation that the Attorney General in Texas and also other states had brought against some of the companies. There was a settlement with 2 of the companies, which would filter down through the state and then consequently to Manville. They have now settled with 2 more companies, Teva and Endo. And we need to sign the paperwork to join in on that settlement. Unfortunately, it's not as much as the last one. The last one was about $12,000. This one, we would get $583 from Endo and $1,375 from Teva. So, but those funds will be used for a specific purpose. And I think, Jason, if you were looking at the list last I saw to see if there's good ways for us to spend that money within the allocated categories.
I'll move to approve.
I'll second. All those in favor? All those opposed? All right, motion carries 7-0. All right, number 6, consideration and possible action to direct staff on the following items as requested by Councilmember Albert. A, status of open positions and option to engage an outside recruitment agency to find fire marshals and other open city positions.
Thank you, Your Honor. Kyle, I'm looking for an update on where we're at. This position's been open for a year now.
We had an interview last Thursday with a very interesting candidate. I asked the police chief to do the background check on the police side of it. So I think we have a very good candidate. It's probably going to take a week or 10 days, something like that, to do the background for the police department side of it. So that's for the fire marshal's position. And I don't remember exactly, but we've gotten a number of applications for the deputy fire marshal position. And what I did was I decided not to hire anybody, or actually not to conduct any interviews for the deputy fire marshal position till we get the fire marshal hired, because that person needs to be involved in hiring their own deputy. So
You're feeling that good?
yes, I am. We also have another individual that came in on Thursday who has several years as a deputy fire marshal with another county, who has actually been working with the city as a consultant. And I don't know if they're going to apply for the fire marshal's position, but it was another one that would be an interesting candidate to interview. But I think the one that we interviewed, he is a current deputy in a city in another county for about 2 or 3 years. And then prior to that, he was 11 years as a deputy for a separate city.
So let's hope that goes well, but in the event it does not, at this point, do we need to look at hiring a headhunter for this position?
I think we'll know in the next week or so if this individual for some reason in the background doesn't work out, then I think that would be an option. I think that
Do we
would be
want to
something-
sit on that, or do we want and see how it goes, or do we want to?
I should be able to give you an update at the next council meeting.
Okay,
with that.
all right, we'll put a pin in that one then.
All right, discussion on open police department positions and possible action to define, recruit, and retain police department recruiters, FTEs, and positions.
Okay, so it's been 7 months since we gave you and the police chief additional positions. Where are we at with getting them filled?
You want numbers, or do you want me to just give you a brief update?
I want numbers or what?
Or a brief update? The Reader's Digest version.
Give me the Reader's Digest.
We have actually, since October, I went back and ran the numbers since October when we got the new positions. We had 32 positions, 32 candidates that applied for the positions. We tested 22. 10 of them failed to show up for the testing. 18 passed the written test. After the written test, we have other qualifications. 4 of them failed those qualifications. In a nutshell, we had 8 candidates that we selected for backgrounds. We did backgrounds on 8 candidates. The 3 of them were disqualified through the background investigations. We made an offer on 1. She declined because we were in competition with Sugar Land. We have hired 4 positions, 2 to replace 2 that left, 2 to fill the first 4, and we're currently doing backgrounds on 2 more.
So how many you got open? Assuming that the backgrounds come through, how many do you still need to fill?
We have 6 total positions open. 2 for the first 6 months that are open, and then in April, we'll get funding for the final 4. We have candidates in the academy that have applied. We got 3 candidates in the academies that will be graduating in May. But right now, we have 2 positions open that are funded that we hopefully will be filling through these backgrounds. I don't see any reason why we wouldn't. They seem to be pretty good candidates with experience coming in.
Okay, so Chief, you've struggled finding cops, and I think part of that is there aren't enough hours in the day to go out and spend the time to recruit, and I know that we're battling other municipalities in terms of benefits and pay and such. Kyle, I wonder whether, we've talked, Mr. Hudson mentioned that he has a relative that does police recruiting, and I know other police departments do that. Do we need to give the chief some relief and look at hiring, have a specific police department recruiter that can actually, that's their job, is to go out? Because this has been a revolving door for him since I've been on council, and it's not just him.
Right.
I mean, everywhere these positions are revolving door. We lost 5 today in the county in my department, so it's a revolving door in public service. Do we need to have a specific recruiter for Keith?
Yeah. Ironically, I worked when I was in graduate school, I worked for the city of Lubbock. Obviously a much larger city, the hub in that part of the area of Texas. They had large areas of recruiting across the state, out of the Metroplex all the way down to Houston, in order to get people to come up and test for the police department. And they'd fill up their amphitheater or their auditorium with candidates taking their tests. Obviously, it's a much larger department, but the idea is if there's a way that we can get more people to take the tests, that's one thing. I don't know if there's a specific recruiter that we could hire that could come and recruit just for the city. We can try, and I know that Mr. Hudson had mentioned it before, but
Well, I'm not talking about necessarily hiring a recruiter. I'm talking about hiring a cop whose job is recruiting. Not a headhunter, somebody whose total job is to take his direction and go and groom people to come.
I hadn't even thought about it that way, as we have somebody on staff as
Yes.
a recruiter.
Yes.
Chief?
We've already gone to several recruiting events. We have several officers, a couple of our sergeants, a couple of our officers, they go to the academies. When the academies start, we do go out and recruit and try to recruit, but the problem we're facing right now is there's nobody wanting to do this job. An example is the Alvin Community College started its spring semester last month. On the very first day, I've never thought about going the first day, but on the very first day of that academy, all they did all day long was have departments come in recruiting the candidates or the cadets. Where they usually have 25 and 30 cadets, they've got 9. So we're battling to find cadets with all the other agencies around, to the point that other agencies are sending their officers out on these extra jobs, recruiting other officers from other agencies. That's how we lost one back in November. That specific reason is because they're recruiting in the lower ranks. The problem is there's not people out there that are wanting to do the job, and that's what we have to find. So we're still going out, we're recruiting the academies. We hit all the local academies around. We send out, of course, our notifications on our emails, not our emails, but our Facebook pages regularly. We have the TML websites, and we have the TCOL websites that we send our job announcements out on. Usually we get some pretty good hits off the TCOL website. We haven't really gotten any this time. You know, usually we're trying to filter out 10 to 12. We haven't got any. We've got a couple of them off the website notifications, but through TML and through the TCOL, we're not getting those anymore for whatever reason. So I don't know really, I understand what you're asking, but I don't know if that's really gonna do us any good with the limited amount of academies we have in this area. They would have to go, we'd have to expand our reach, I guess I would say.
Yeah, and let's be clear so that make sure that everybody's on the same page here. I'm not dogging any of you. I understand
Yeah,
this is a
yes.
challenge. I'm saying it's time. It's past time for us to be thinking outside the box and thinking differently. And you said it yourself. You know, the battle is different now. Now you've got other departments that are doing almost exactly what I'm suggesting here, except they're doing it on
We're already doing
extra
the same
jobs.
thing.
So you got to one up them, and in my mind, you one up them by us giving you the FTE. That is their entire job, and if that means that they go up to North Texas and find kids and programs up there and convince them that they want to move down here, then I think that's the lengths that we're going to need to go to get you the staff that you need.
I think as we start growing and getting bigger, that might be a direction that we could,
Don't think you have the time to wait, Keith.
I don't know what else to do. I mean, we're doing everything we can do.
I'm
Yeah, we can hire anybody and everybody, but there's nobody there.
I'm gonna leave it to you and the city manager. I think we should hire the position. I think you should ask the council to ask for the position. That was the point of my item. So you gave me the update. Thank you both for the update. On the record, I still am concerned that you're gonna have the time to recruit for what you need to. So you've been doing really good thinking outside the box here, Kyle. Let's start thinking outside the box on this.
Actually, as this discussion was going on, one of the things that, thinking back to when I was in HR in Lubbock, they went to the military bases, and they were looking for MPs. And that was just one of the things. I don't know that we've done that, but kind of thinking outside the box, maybe there are individuals that are close to the end of their contract who have the MP MOS that might be willing to look at this area. So that was another idea that, okay, I'll see what we can do about, that might be another source.
Yes, sir.
One other thing that I failed to mention that I've already been talking, Pearland has initiated their own police academy. And I've already been talking with them, and we have already had some discussion about when we start hiring these 4, 5, and 6, is that we start looking at engaging with them and putting our officers, going out and finding people that are qualified for the job, and then putting them through that academy. That way we're training them in the academy, and then they come to us trained. What Kyle was saying with going to the military bases, we get applications all the time that they don't have the basic police academy. Right now, we can't send them through the basic police academy, but that's something we can look at doing, is we can bring a group together and start sending them and working with Pearland in their academy. But what we've had to start doing, and as I talked to the other chiefs in the county, they started doing the same thing. We used to try to get a group of candidates together, okay? 5, 10, 15, however many. We would set a particular date. Well, I found out here about 3 weeks ago that there's other agencies that aren't doing that anymore. As they come in, they're testing. So they're not waiting. So while we're sitting there waiting to get a group of people up, they're testing everybody. So we changed our ways of doing it. We don't bring a group in anymore. As they apply, we run a little short background on them, and then we bring them in and we start testing them. That way we're trying to get the jump and try to sink our hooks in before anybody else can.
And we've got to. We've got to change the way we're doing this. I mean, you and I are dinosaurs in this business. I mean, the same with Larry. We've been doing this a long time. But the way that we got into it when we got into it, and the way we were recruited into this is not the way that we can do it today. And we're doing the same thing. I mean, we're finding that in EMS across the state of Texas, what we're doing is going out and finding not EMTs, but people that are capable of being EMTs, and then getting them into training programs so that we can sponsor them into the program, so that by the time the recruiters go into the program, they're already spoken for. And we've never had to do that. We've never had to do that.
Well, that's one area that I'm really interested in looking at is trying to find qualified candidates and then setting them up to train with the Pearlands Training Academy. I think as we get bigger and we start looking at groups of 4 and 5 at a time and not splitting them up, that's the way we ought to be looking at it. But that's something we can definitely look at and try to figure out a way of doing it. And we've already got recruiting trips lined up to start hitting these academies. So we're working on it. It's just a struggle.
All right. Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor. This has been a very interesting conversation, and Kyle and Chief, I would be interested in just seeing what the feasibility would be of hiring a position as to what Councilman Albert's mentioning. You know, what would the cost be associated with that? Where would the funding come from? Because as I hear the Chief talking about our current force spending time going to these other events, that means more time of our current officers or sergeants or the chief spending time outside of the city doing this. And what's the cost benefit analysis compared to our current officers doing this? If, compared to bringing somebody else in, I'd be very interested in just seeing what the feasibility of that would be, if it's something that we have the capacity to bring in from a financial standpoint, and if it actually makes sense. So I think that this is definitely, Mayor, a conversation that I think we should continue, because I think that looking at it, from a millennial's perspective, not a dinosaur's perspective, we do need to think outside the box, and kind of have to get that in there. All right, that's all, Mayor. I'll be quiet now.
Just as a ballpark would be, you're probably looking at the equivalent of a sergeant's salary as a recruiter, and then obviously vehicle and travel and other expenses associated with that. That's just kind of a ballpark guess of what that position probably would cost.
Yeah, I also think it's probably, a special set of talents. It's somebody who is definitely geared in the cheerleading business for the police force, so, at any rate, let's.
Yeah. Interestingly, they're going to need to know what the department is. So it's probably somebody that has already been here for a while that gets kind of shifted over into that position, because you can't just go out and hire somebody and say, hey, go work for Manville, because I don't know where it is. It's somewhere south of Houston. So they're going to need to know something about the department and the culture that's kind of being developed right now. So it might need to be a current one that you promote, or you move into that, and you probably have to backfill that position just like anything else.
Jerome.
Yeah, question. Mayor Trail, Chief Fieldler, sorry. How many officers do we have now? Police officers, yeah, the whole.
We've been approved for 32 sworn. That's including the CID and administrative staff. Right now, patrol, make me think.
I think the number is 23 patrol.
23 or 24 on patrol. Do what?
That's good, yeah. Just wondering.
We're at 26. good to have backup.
That's good.
Okay. All right, next we have discussion and possible action on the effectiveness of HR and HR-related activities.
Thank you. So Kyle, I'm gonna turn this around. It's the same conversation. Your city's getting much bigger now. The strains on the HR department are pretty big, and I see positions that have been listed on this list for months and months. Do we need to add to the HR department to be able to actively recruit people?
Again, Chad is actually here. Chad Dumont is our HR manager. The information I got, we have 91 budgeted positions, and I think we have hired 81, or we have currently 81 employees. So we're up already 20 from October, I think. Most of those were in development services and truthfully in community services. That's where the big hires, the big numbers of hires that have been made since October have come in. Those that are in utilities or public works, that's where the numbers have come from so far. Jessica isn't here, but obviously the planners, the assistant city engineer, those in community services, development services, I'm sorry, and then obviously the police department are the other holes that we have left. Whether we need more people to go out and start recruiting those, I can ask if the staff feels like they need that. Unfortunately, just like the chief has been saying, and I think we've kind of had this conversation before about, we're looking for people, and they're just simply not applying for these positions right now.
Yeah, and again, my point in the item is that you know it's not going to slow down. So if we need to be thinking differently, and we need to give you different tools in the toolbox, then I would rather that we do it sooner than later. You know, having positions stay open for a long time when we're competing with other places, I mean, it's just the days of waiting for applicants to come and work for the government because they're excited to come work for the government are gone. So if I see the number of people that we're adding and the things that we're adding onto Chad's plate. So if recruiting is not something that he has a whole lot of time to do, then maybe you should be thinking about hiring another person just to do that, to fill the open positions. Because again, the bigger we get, the faster that door is going to revolve for all the positions across the city.
I agree. And a recruiter might be that may be the next thing, as you say, that we need. And they wouldn't, they would be for anything, for any of
Yes.
the open positions and not just one area.
And I think the
Police department's
police
kind
need
of-
their own for what that is, but I think that they're I believe you need two. I think you need a police recruiter, and I think you need an HR recruiter.
Okay.
Yes,
Kyle or Chad, based off of both of y'all's HR experiences, I know for police it's about 2 patrol officers per 1,000 people. For HR, is there like a quantitative element based off of your increase in size as a city?
I wish there was. The police have come up with that number. How it actually was determined, I don't know that. The interesting thing is, as the city takes on additional development that uses city facilities, water and sewer specifically are the easiest ones to track, there might be a way of determining that. We haven't even gotten to the point of creating a whole department like a Parks and Rec. When we get to that, we're going to have to go from 0 to a dozen probably overnight. Interestingly, I guess he's left, but there's probably at least one person who was talking earlier that could probably tell us if there are some numbers about sort of the park side of it. Because there was this guy that was kind of standing up there a minute ago that kind of runs a park. He might have kind of information that would talk specifically about that. As for sort of the internal stuff, finance, development services, I don't know those yet. And I kind of jokingly mentioned when the council approved that budget, I was kind of afraid of what might be asked for from the staff, that we might ask the council coming up in the next year for all of those other needs. And that will be part of the discussion that we're going to be having in the very near future, because April, May, the staff starts talking about it. so that the council can understand what the thoughts are for the next year's budget and the next positions that might be requested from the council. So we're sort of at the beginning stages of that discussion right now.
Good. I'm glad that we're having that conversation because I want to, from an HR standpoint, make sure that we're being proactive instead of reactive. Because HR, with respect to Councilman Albert's item, is more than just, of course, recruiting. There's so much more that is involved with HR. And as we continue to add more and more and more employees, making sure that we have the appropriate resources to facilitate a work environment, proper certifications, management of the files, which Tammy, I'm sure, can speak to the management of the files as well, to make sure that we have that support staff there in order to make sure that our frontline employees are getting the resources they need behind the scenes is going to be important. So as long as we're looking at those numbers and having that conversation, that's good.
Part of the discussion, I know Gilbert has already been working on it. We're already looking at 2 of the storerooms in this building that we're going to chop up and actually create into offices. Because of that very thing, is we're looking at the additional people that will be coming on. Right now, yes, we moved into a new building a year and a half ago, but now we're looking at needing additional space for the ones that we have right now.
All right. Yes, sir.
Since Jessica's not here, I'd like to table number D, or letter D on my,
All right.
on my list. I don't think it would be fair to have that discussion without her.
All right.
If we could move on to the next one.
And then we have E, discussion and possible action on the status of the salary survey and employee engagement survey. Direction was given to staff last September.
Self-explanatory. Where are you at?
Actually, Chris can talk about it, but we got a proposal on the 17th, and it's the only one we've received to do the salary survey. And I think Chris can talk about that.
Yep, we took your advice, we took your direction, and I think I told you when you asked for it in October that it probably wouldn't be a really quick turnaround. My error on that assumption would be that we would find somebody really quick who would tell us it would take them 9 months to a year to do it. We contacted a couple of folks, and they were not very eager to respond to us. In fact, they were not at all responsive to us. We had someone who had an inside contact over at Iowa Colony. They were able to provide the name of the person who was doing Iowa Colony survey, and it just so happens that that person was involved with the survey that we did at Angleton. So I knew who it was and immediately reached out, and they said, absolutely, we'll give you a proposal. Do you want it right now? And I said, well, the auditors are in the house at this exact moment, so can you wait a week or two? And she provided that proposal. It is within the specification that you set up, and I think they said that it would take about 3 months to complete it once it's started. So we were ready to bring this, I think, 2 weeks ago when you weren't here, but now we are ready to say we have a proposal. We went and got our 3 bids. 2 of them didn't return it back to us, so we are waiting for an approval. Yes, absolutely do it. Hurry up, please. Thank you. Whatever you would like to offer us, or if you want us to go out and see if we can find some more people that will give us a different rate, we can do that as well.
TikTok. Let's talk next week, next meeting. My opinion. I mean, the longer we wait on this, the riskier it is that you're not going to have it done in time for the next budget. And this problem that we've been talking about for the last 30 minutes isn't going to go away. I mean, we've got to get the salaries right. We've got to do better at that in order. That's sadly the only thing that we have to wield, is that we're not saddled with a bunch of infrastructure debt. We're not saddled with a bunch of years and years and years of having governed and built up debt. So I think I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. We're in a unique position that if we need to front load salaries to set the expectations higher, to be able to recruit the best and the brightest, so that we do have what we need, then I think we should be considering doing those things. So I'm excited to hear what you guys have next time you're ready.
We'll move forward.
All right. Thank you, Councilman Albert. Appreciate it. All right, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Motion to approve, Mayor.
I'll second.
Second motion.
All those in favor? Those opposed, motion carries 7-0. We are now going to go into executive session. City Council will convene into executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, Personnel Matters, to deliberate the appointment, employment, evaluation, and duties of a public officer or employee. Kyle J. Young, City Manager. All right, and so we will do that now at 8:19, and we'll be back soon. 8:59, and we are back. So, with no action having been taken in executive session, do we have any council comments? Anybody?
A short council comment about the meeting that we had at Rodeo Palms on March 1st. We had TxDOT in all of their glory and all of their high representatives come out and tell everybody about what's going to transpire at the entrance. And they had wonderful maps, and they had a bunch of slides about what's going to happen, how it's going to happen. And I'm going to ask Tammy just to send a link to everybody to say, hey, go to the TxDOT website at this little link and view it, know what's coming, and you can actually, up until the 18th of this month, write comments. You know, what you think should happen, what you would like to happen. And so that would be the easiest way, is for her to send it so everybody can see, look at it, see what you think. It was I feel it was pretty well attended. We had people there for 4 or 5 hours just coming in and out and in and out and in and out. And so we should start seeing dirt move in the fall. So it's going to be really quick. I mean, they're ready to go. And then they're going to keep on going from there to Iowa Colony to do some other work. And Tammy, I'll just send it to you, and we'll just let everybody see it at your leisure. Comment if you want. Looks good, waiting for a long time. People are already, the delineators are almost already gone. We knew that was going to happen. So it looks the door like nice and dented up, but it was a nice gesture for them to come and try and help people move in and out. So that's the only update on that.
Does TxDOT usually consult a lot on these major projects with the city and keep the city apprised as to progress or things like that? I'm assuming absolutely none, but.
This was.
Yeah, pretty much not, but I will say that they were at the last BCCA meeting giving an overall picture of what's happening in the county. And we do have a couple of really good representatives if we want to reach out to them. So that just may be what we have to do. So, all right, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All right, all those in favor? Thank you. Okay.